Welcome. I'm Brian Crow, a member of the Carson City Methodist Church, and today we're going to be showing you a safety video that is appropriate for our church and consistent with our church's emergency plan. The video covers most subjects that are covered in the emergency plan, but we're going to emphasize earthquake safety, heart attack and response to heart attack, active shooter, using a fire extinguisher, and response to someone with a stroke. So I'm really hoping that you enjoy the video and that you're interested in taking additional training that the church is going to be offering, and that you train other members of your family based on this video, because a lot of what we're doing is really appropriate for the church and for other places. The purpose of the presentation is to provide guidance to all that use church facilities, and it's also appropriate for things in your house, household emergency response, and also workplace emergency response. And with that, let me give you a little information on my background. I'm a mechanical engineer. I worked approximately 30 years with a worldwide construction and engineering firm, and needed to settle down because my children started getting older, so we moved to the Carson Valley. I did some consulting for a while, and then I got a job with Western Nevada College as their environmental health and safety coordinator, and I really enjoyed that. And while I was there, I spent 13 years on the Carson City Local Emergency Planning Committee, their LEPSI, representing the college. And currently, I'm a leader of the Carson City Community Emergency Response Team, which is a CERT team in Carson City. So that just gives you a little feel for what I have been doing in my life. Purpose of the training is to familiarize yourself with the church emergency plan, and we always want to try to improve that plan. And I know many of you are going to have very good thoughts and ideas. I've already gotten some from people about how to improve the plan, or things in the church that we need to improve that would improve safety and security. The other thing that we hope to do is to recruit some volunteers so that we have people at worship services, at small group meetings, to support the emergency plan if we do have an emergency situation. At your First United Methodist Church, our emergency priorities are life safety, prevention of psychological trauma, then protection of property, and finally recovery and return to pre-operational scope. Our scope is that really the emergency plan includes our entire campus. The only exception is the Small Blessings preschool, and by Nevada law, they're required to have their own emergency plan. But fortunately, their plan is consistent with our plan. So in essence, we do communicate with each other. Next, I want to talk about the 4 phases of emergency management. And these are the same phases that our emergency responders use. The first of which is mitigation. And when I think about mitigation, I typically think about fire. Preparedness. With what we've seen recently right now, I'm thinking about earthquakes when I say the word preparedness, although it applies to all types of emergencies. Response. Quick response is needed for heart attacks and strokes, another item that we're going to be going over in a little bit of detail today. And then, of course, recovery is returning to pre-incident conditions. Our goal with respect to the emergency volunteer team is to have 2 or more people in the small group meetings that we have both in the church and externally, people at every worship service. We also want to try to train the Sunday school teachers and several of the employees at the Small Blessings preschool. What you'll learn is to be aware, to report, and to take action. We think it's very important that you try to get the AED CPR first aid training, and Pam in the church office can get you signed up for that. We do that on an annual basis, and we'd love to see more people taking that training. And as I said before, we really want to try to improve the church safety and security, and you can do that. And we also have a reporting form. I'm going to show you a copy of that form. Again, it's available from me, and it's also available, it's kind of hard to see it, but it's available at the church office. And what it is it shows, what was the incident, what was the problem, what was the concern, what is required, and what's your conclusion and your recommendation. So we want to try to use that to report incidents, to report things that need to be corrected, and other things that may improve the safety of the church. Trained church members are really going to be very knowledgeable of others that are using church facilities. A lot of times you might have a meeting in church facilities and you might not be aware of everybody else that might be in the church or in the church's facilities at that time. We need to improve that so everyone knows who is there and what they are and what times they're going to be there. And you also learn to interface effectively with emergency responders. At Western Nevada College, we had a lot of incidents where things would happen, and if we had trained people that acted very quickly, we could change the course of what happened. One time, we had a gas company that had a gas leak in one of our parking lots, and this occurred before 8 o'clock in the morning. And as a result of the leak, they called 911 and got the fire department out there. The fire department called dispatch and told them that we ought to shut down Western Nevada College for the day. And so we got a call, public safety got a call. They were not near the parking lot. I was. They called me. I went to the parking lot. I knew the incident commander on the incident, and I could see that he was giving instructions. The wind was blowing from west to east, and it really wasn't blowing towards the college, it was blowing towards the neighborhood. And they started getting a better control on this fix, and it would only take about 40 minutes to an hour to complete the full repair. In the meantime, we had cars coming into the college. So I said to the incident commander, I said, why don't we just close the parking lot for the day, let you finish here. We'll have people park in other parking lots. We'll put signs up to keep people out of here, but we'll be able to keep the college open. And they agreed with that. And that's the kind of action that we can take. And of course, we're going to talk about other more critical action, but those are the things that we can do once you become knowledgeable of the church facilities and can take action. The first item that we really want to get into is earthquake training, and the film that we're going to show you is 7 Steps to Earthquake Safety, and it takes about 3 minutes, and I hope you enjoy it.
The 7 Steps to Earthquake Safety. When it comes to earthquakes, there are simple things that you can do to make yourself safer. The 7 Steps to Earthquake Safety will help you better prepare to survive and recover wherever you live, work, or travel. Prepare. 1. Secure your space. Prevent injuries by securing movable items such as television sets, bookcases, and picture frames. Step 2. Plan to be safe. Create a disaster plan and decide how you will communicate with friends and family in an emergency. 3. Organize your disaster supplies. Put together at least a 3-day supply of food, water, and medication for each person in your family. Keep the supplies in convenient locations such as your home, office, and car. 4. Minimize financial hardship. Keep important documents in the cloud or other secure location. Start strengthening your property and buy earthquake insurance. Survive. 5. Drop, cover, and hold on. Drop down onto your hands and knees before the earthquake knocks you down. Cover your head and neck and entire body if possible under a sturdy table or desk. If you can't get under a desk or are unable to drop, get down near an interior wall and brace yourself and protect your head and neck. Hold on to your shelter or your head and neck until the shaking stops. Step 6. Improve safety. If you're near the shore, move to higher ground as soon as the shaking stops. If you're not in the tsunami zone, improve safety and prevent further damage by evacuating your home after the ground stops shaking and helping the injured if necessary. Recover. 7. Reconnect and restore. Reconnect with others and restore daily life by filing a claim with your earthquake insurance provider and help rebuild your community. For additional resources, download a printable copy of the 7 Steps to Earthquake Safety. Learn more about the 7 steps at earthquakecountry.org/7 steps. Participate in the Great California Shakeout in October. Go to www.shakeout.org for more information. Visit www.myhazards.calema.ca.gov. Learn more about earthquakes and other hazards where you live and work. Learn about earthquake preparedness, download checklists, and more at www.totallyunprepared.com. Get the American Red Cross free earthquake app by texting GetQuake to 90999. Get a premium estimate from CEA at www.earthquakeauthority.com. Earthquakes can strike at any time and often with little or no warning. Safeguard your finances and speed up your recovery by purchasing earthquake insurance. Talk to your home insurance agent today. Working together, we can be prepared to survive and recover after the next damaging earthquake.
I hope you enjoyed the film. Let's review the 7 steps. The first one was to secure your space, and this is pretty critical. I've got some examples here. The first thing they showed in the diagram was a hot water heater, and this is the type of rope or metal wire that I have around. I have 2 of them around my hot water heater to keep it secure during an earthquake. And this applies to your home more than anything else. You really ought to look and make sure that yours is properly secured. We've had some earthquakes recently, and things like this can loosen up and the like. The second item that I've got down here are tall bookcases and other tall furniture. And, for those, I typically use a little angle iron. I think you can see this pretty well. What you do is you put one into the wall and one into the bookcase, and it'll keep the bookcase and other tall furniture in a unique position. Next is glass. The sanctuary windows that we've got in the church are wonderful to look at, but they could really kind of fall all over the place in an earthquake. So if you're sitting or standing somewhere near those windows, you want to get away from them, and all windows in an earthquake situation. A lot of times we do high shelving, try to hide or store things in storage areas, picture frames, large televisions at home, can also be problems. Uh, the reason I included earthquakes in this was even before we had the two recent quakes that we've had. Uh, I learned when I worked at Western Nevada College that they came in and they excavated some of the old earthquake faults that run through the college terrain. And they concluded that the probability of earthquakes in the Carson City area was more than what was originally envisioned. So that's the reason that I included this. And I think it's very important seeing how we've had a couple of recent quakes. Uh, Communication is another thing that you're going to lose a lot of times during a major earthquake. No phone, no power is the often the outcome of an earthquake. Who will your family point of contact be outside the area? Uh, who is going to have the emergency supplies? And do you have a portable radio? And it's very important, in my mind, to have a portable radio, even though you've got a radio in your automobile. But you want to have a portable radio, and you want to have spare batteries for that portable radio, because it can be very critical to understand what's going on, what roads are open, and the like. Emergency supplies, where are they? Who will get them? I try to keep a lot of first aid supplies in my vehicle. Food and water is in the house, and we'd probably have to take it with us if we were going to leave the house if it wasn't suited to continue staying there if we needed to evacuate. Pet and pet supplies, phone and charger, computer and charger, and getting out of your garage. You know, a lot of times when you don't have power, you have to disconnect the garage door from the drive and then reconnect it when you've got your car out of the garage. If you don't know how to do it, I emphasize that you probably should try to learn how to do that. Financial situation really varies based on the individual. And then we get into drop, cover, and hold, which is for stronger quakes than what we've seen recently. Uh, you know, get underneath a strong table, away from glass and non-structural hazards. And non-structural hazards are anything that are above you or on the walls if you're next to a wall. Interior wall, away from glass and non-structural hazards. If you're in a wheelchair, lock the brakes, go against an interior wall, put your hands behind your head, and keep your head down. That's the best thing to do. In other situations, if you're driving, you want to pull off the road, and there can be a lot of displacement of roads. There can be power lines on roads. There are bridges that can be partially destroyed by an earthquake. If you're outside, find a clear area, no buildings, no tall trees, no power lines or other hazards. It's just a challenge. I want to stop and talk about some of the earthquakes that we've seen. A lot of you probably were involved in the Loma Prieta quake of 1989. That was a 6.9 on the Richter scale. Also, the Northridge quake was very big, and that was 6.7. I experienced even a larger one down in Brawley, California, when I was working on a geothermal unit down there. It was a Hector mine earthquake, which was 7.1. But because it was in the desert, and because it was an unpopulated area, there was very little damage and very few injuries from this quake. But I just want to give you my experience. It hit at 3 o'clock in the morning. I could not sit up in bed. I had to roll out of my bed. The Venetian blinds were going back and forth about 4 feet. So I started crawling towards the exit. I was scared that my apartment building, I was on a second floor apartment, And thank goodness my family wasn't there at that particular time, so it was just me. I just wanted to get out of the building in the worst way, but I was crawling on my hands and knees to get out. When I went past the toilet, the water was coming up and out of the toilet where I could see it. And as I got to the door to exit my apartment, the earthquake, thank goodness, stopped. Okay. And I just want to give you that because that's how bad an earthquake can be. And the worst part of this is we had a second shift working, and they were working on elevated tanks that were about 40 feet high, putting great big pieces of plate and welding them onto these tanks as they were erecting them on scaffold using cherry pickers and the like. So we had a whole bunch of Boilermakers that were out there doing this. And I had a young engineer who was in charge of the second shift, and we also had people working in the two operating units during this second shift on specific items. So he had to run around. We had both radio communication and we had telephone, but our telephone was out for probably about the first hour after the incident, okay, our cell phone. But he went around and checked with everybody. Fortunately, no one was hurt. The Boilermakers wanted to leave and not come back for a week, and we thought that was wonderful. And why do you think we thought that was wonderful? Well, the reason we thought that was wonderful was the fact that aftershocks can occur after a big quake like that. And taking 7 days off will get a feeling for how many aftershocks we're have to get. If you look at the recent Tonopah quake, they've been having quite a few aftershocks down there, although they haven't been as big as the main quake. A lot of times the aftershock can even be bigger than the initial quake. So just a little bit more on earthquakes to give you a good feel of what type of situation you can get yourself into. Should you evacuate from a building? That's an interesting question. If there is a gas leak, definitely. If there are power issues, if your power goes off, it's fine. But if you had something sparking, or if you go to your power panel and there are a whole bunch of them that are tripped for some reason, it might be a good idea to evacuate, and it might be a good idea to turn off the power. Most times you can usually leave it on, and of course there's a lot of different things that can happen, particularly when they turn the power back on. But it's really kind of your decision, and there's a lot of information out there if you look at the internet on that. But if natural gas is leaking, you probably want to get out, and you probably want to turn off the natural gas, and you can do that with a wrench or a pair of pliers. But they also make what they call an earthquake survival tool, and it shows you exactly how to turn off the gas if you're not used to doing that in your home. So that's just another thing that I want to make you aware of. Are there injuries that are more than minor? Is it safe to travel to the hospital? Always use the USGS website to figure out how big and where the quake was actually located. You should anticipate aftershocks. In Nevada, we're not going to get many tsunamis, at least right away. And the Red Cross has a wonderful website where you can enter if you are maybe got displaced from your home, you have no power, maybe you moved away and still your cell phone is not working. You can sign up with the Red Cross Safe and Well website so people will know where you're at and how to contact you. That's very handy, and you can go to that website and just see how to log in if you did have a situation where you'd have to use that. And then step 7 is reconnect and restore. After last month's quake, I thought I had the house in good shape. I really didn't. I had 3 tall bookcases that were not secured to the wall. I secured them to the wall the day that we had the quake. And I also had a large radio up above where my computer was. And that was not ideal because the radio could have fallen on the computer and wiped out my computer. So it takes, it's a good idea to take a look around your house and see if you have any similar types of situations. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about managing emergency situations. Communication is huge. I mean, the cell phone, the radio, it's all very, very important because you need to be able to report concerns almost immediately in order to get a decent response. Code Red is a communication tool that is used by Carson City, and we encourage all church members to sign up to Code Red, not only at their home but also at the church address. And I'm going to put this up there, and you can get these cards from either me or from Pam in the church office. But what it is when there is an emergency, they've broken Carson City up into areas. So if you live away from the church, you're going to get a notice of a fire in your neighborhood, and maybe the church wouldn't because it was so far away from them, or a different kind of emergency. Maybe there's a power outage. They'd send the alert to the areas where the power outage actually existed. So it's important to sign up for both areas. And if you work in an area, you might want to make yourself sign up for the third area. We also are going to start using air horns and megaphones at the church, and I brought a sample of one of those with me today because we do have such a large Bonnie Reed building with a basement and elevations and the Wesley room and the kitchen, as well as the sanctuary. It's hard, the youth building, which is now being used by the preschool, it's hard to notify everybody quickly. And I think putting out some of these devices will help us be able to notify people in an emergency situation a little bit better. The church also has a weapons policy that has been in place for some time. The church does not allow guns or explosive devices on our property except for local sheriff's personnel, local police personnel, and church members who have State of Nevada concealed carry permits and training that is recent and deemed sufficient by our church officials. Pam kind of organizes this in the church office, so if you want to start following this policy, please contact Pam in the church office. What to do in an emergency situation? Try to remain calm. Do you think I was calm during the 7.1 earthquake that I was in? Probably not. I did maintain my best judgment, however. And I did inform others, and I communicated with the people that I needed to communicate with, and I did take the corrective action and appropriate action. So that's the bottom line. Church roles and responsibilities with respect to the emergency plan. The senior pastor and the church administrator are the key people for issues and suggestions for changing the plan. Trained church members will be at services. To help when emergency situations occur. And the problem is that all church members, or any church member, could be the first one to identify a problem, whether it be a fire, a person with a stroke, a person with a heart attack, or whatever. So they need to be able to take action and communicate based on this training to let the trained people in the church know what's going on and also to call 911 for assistance. So we really need everybody's support in the church in order to carry out this plan. We're always trying to improve our plan. It's not a stagnant document. When I worked with Carson City, we updated the emergency plan on an annual basis. And the same applies for Western Nevada College, and we'll be trying to update this plan on an annual basis as well. The next slide that I've got really talks about all the different types of emergencies that are included in our plan. And the ones with the asterisks are the ones that we're going to be talking about in detail today. So I just want to read the list to you. The first is active shooter that we are going to cover in detail. Bomb threat and suspicious package is second. Building fire or explosion is third, and we're going to cover that in detail. Crime in progress, theft, damage, vandalism, disease or pandemic, hazardous spill or exposure, heart attack, stroke, or injury. We're covering that in detail. Hostage situation or kidnapping. Then natural disasters, we're going to cover earthquake in detail. Terrorism, civil unrest, utility outage, service problems, and workplace violence, excluding active shooter. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about heart attack, stroke, and injury. And what I want to make you aware of first, if you're not a trained medical provider, is that in Nevada Revised Statute 41.500, we have the Good Samaritan Law. And I'm going to read you a part of this. There's all kinds of exceptions to this rule. I'm not going to read the whole thing. It's quite a long document. But just to give you the gist of it, any person in the state who renders emergency care or assistance in an emergency gratuitously and in good faith is not liable for civil damages as a result of any act of omission not amounting to gross neglect. So that, if you want to read the whole thing, just go to that NRS and read the whole thing. But I just wanted you to be aware of that because that really helps us. And so if there is a situation, you first call 911. You locate a trained medical responder, and it might just be someone from the church that has taken that class. They may need a first aid kit or an AED once they get to see the patient. They may need other assistance as well. You need to send someone outside to guide the ambulance after they've been called to the best location to get directly to the patient. In other words, seconds are important at this point in time. And I want to talk a little bit about a tourniquet. I brought one with me. I kind of feel that every household ought to have a tourniquet, although it's not normally something that's required to be in a first aid kit. We always get the CAT tourniquet. That's the brand of the tourniquet. And the instructions, I'm just going to show this to you, will show you how to use it effectively. And really what it is, you just put it on your arm or whatever. I'll try to show it here a little bit. You'd put it on your arm, and then you've got a little handle here where after you tighten it as much as you can tighten it more with this little handle that's here. So again, we're going to have a Stop the Bleed class that teaches you about tourniquets and teaches you about many other things that are effective when you need to stop the bleeding in a patient. Heart attack warning signs. if you start feeling this, what you need to do is, before it gets worse, you need to draw someone's attention to the fact that you are feeling some discomfort. And if you know what these warning signs are, you know, not that we want you to panic, but somebody needs to know what's going on so they can care for you if it actually is a heart attack. Chest discomfort is one. Discomfort of the upper body areas, arms, neck, jaw, back, stomach. Shortness of breath, with or without chest discomfort. Other signs, breaking out in a cold sweat, nausea, lightheadedness, and for women are more likely to experience other common symptoms, particularly shortness of breath, nausea, vomiting, and back and jaw pain. So that just gives you a feel for what it could be. Even if you as a responder are not sure that it's a heart attack, check it out in a matter of minutes. Fast action can save lives and maybe your own, so call 911. Next, I want to show you the best CPR video ever. At least that's what they claim. I really enjoy it. It's about 5 minutes in length. I hope you enjoy it, and I'm going to see you when the video's over, and we'll continue talking a little bit about heart attacks. Thank you.
Are you okay? Are you okay? You, call 911. You, get an AED.
This is a scene that plays out over 1,000 times every day in the United States. If you see or find an adult or teen who has collapsed, they could be in cardiac arrest, and you need to act now. Assess for any signs of movement or normal breathing. If the person has slow, deep gasps, this is not the same as breathing. Call 911 or direct someone to call. Treat. Press hard and fast on the center of the chest. Place the heel of your dominant hand directly on the center of the chest and interlock the fingers of your other hand. Keep your arms straight and lean over the victim, using your body to compress the chest. Push down hard. You need to compress the chest at least 2 inches and push 2 times every second, or 120 times per minute. Allow the chest to recoil completely with each compression. If the victim is on a soft surface, like a bed or a couch, move them to the ground before beginning compressions. You may have heard in the past that you must do mouth-to-mouth ventilations. Mouth-to-mouth is not needed for adults or teens and could be harmful. Perform chest compressions only. However, mouth-to-mouth is needed for young children and infants. While performing chest compressions, direct someone close by to get an AED. The AED, or automated external defibrillator, is the only thing that will shock the victim's heart back into normal function. When the AED arrives to the victim, simply turn it on and follow the voice-guided instructions.
Unit OK. Stay calm. Check responsiveness. Call for help. Attach defib pads to patient's bare chest. Don't touch patient. Analyzing. Don't touch patient. Analyzing. Shock advised. Don't touch patient. Press flashing shock button. Shock delivered. Start CPR.
The AED will only deliver a shock to someone who needs it, so do not be afraid to put it on anyone who is unconscious. Now that you know how to act, let's watch this again.
Are you okay? Are you okay? You, call 911. You, get an AED.
Keep your arms straight and lean over the victim, using your body to compress the chest. Push down hard. You need to compress the chest at least 2 inches and push 2 times every second, or 120 times per minute.
Unit OK. Stay calm. Check responsiveness. Call for help. Attach defib pads to patient's bare chest. Don't touch patient. Analyzing. Shock advised. Press flashing shock button. Shock delivered. Start CPR.
In many instances, an ambulance or other medical professional can be 5 to 10 minutes away or more. Continue chest compressions while rotating compressors every 2 minutes until help arrives, and continue to follow the instructions of the AED or 911 dispatcher. You be the hero. Teach your friends and family to act now.
I hope you liked the video. I certainly did. Let's go through exactly what they went through in the video, just kind of as a reminder. First, you want to assess the patient, attempt to talk. Are they breathing or are they not breathing? Okay. Call 911, have someone get the AED, and find someone with CPR training. When you're given CPR to somebody, I can get worn out in about 10 minutes. So you really want to try to get at least 2 people there that know CPR and can do CPR on the individual, because it is very tiring. So then you treat the person with CPR, you install the AED pads, and you follow the instructions of the AED, because the AED will talk to you, will give you instructions. Stay away from the patient when you get ready to shock. When it says to shock, you push the shock button, and the AED will either shock or it won't shock. And then what you want to do is resume CPR again until the ambulance gets there. And again, I always like to send someone outside to guide the ambulance to the right location. We're going to change our subject now. We're going to talk about fire and what you need to know. Water can be used on fires, but you need to know exactly what caused the fire. So when you look at, or you could use a fire extinguisher, and we'll talk about fire extinguishers in a little bit. For large fires, you want to immediately, with any fire, you want to immediately call 911. Electrical fires, you don't use water. You can use a fire extinguisher, which is an ABC fire extinguisher, and we'll get into that a little bit. Grease fires, our kitchen range in the Bonnie Reed building has a Class K grease fire system. So you should be able to energize that system and put out a grease fire there. At home, what you want to do is try to cover the pan or put baking soda or salt on the area where you've got the fire. With large fires, again, or any fire, you want to send someone outside to direct the truck. You want to send people to warn others in the building if it's safe to do it. Otherwise, you want to immediately get everybody out of the building. Close doors as you leave to limit the oxygen in the building, so the fire will hopefully slow down a little bit. Turn off the building's natural gas, and I've showed you the device that you can use for that. And if safe, have a team use a fire extinguisher. And what we do in CERT is we typically, one person leads the way with the fire extinguisher, the other person has a hand on the person's shoulder, and they're watching everything else that's going on in the building to make sure that the exit that you're going to use after you use the fire extinguisher is open and accessible. When you use the fire extinguisher, and I'm going to get one you want to pull the pin, which is right here, and that's very easy to do. Then you aim, and a lot of them have a hose. This one does not have a hose. So then you want to aim it at the base of the flame. You want to squeeze the handle here, and you want to spray back and forth at the base of the flame. And it's pretty easy, and I really hope to be able to give you actual training on this. So if you're interested in actually using one on a real fire, don't hesitate to let me know. The question that I've got for you is, what is the biggest danger during a building fire? Well, typically the smoke or the heat are what's going to get you. Because if you get exposed to too much smoke, it's just going to overcome you, and the heat can do the same. But of course, the fire can also do a lot of damage. The types of fire, I think, are very important, and let me grab the fire extinguisher again, because I want you to get a look at the symbols that are on it. Because we've got symbols at the base where you can see where it says A, B, C. A is wood, paper, and cloth. B is flammable liquids, and C is electrical. And that's the type of fire extinguisher that we've got in the church, and that's the type of fire extinguisher that today there are in most buildings. Now you will see an occasional water fire extinguisher, but they're pretty rare right now. So the Class A is wood, paper, cloth. Class B is flammable liquids. Class C is electrical. Class D is combustible metals like magnesium. So those aren't very common in regular buildings. We have them in chemistry labs at the college. You'd have them maybe at auto shops where they have alloy wheels and stuff like that, or in metal shops where they're using unusual metals. And then the other class of fire is a Class K, which is a kitchen fire that is involved in hot oils. And like I said before, the Bonnie Reed building does have protection for that on our stove there. Next, I want to go into natural disasters. And it's kind of interesting because we covered earthquake, and I want to talk a little bit about wildfire because that's clearly a danger in Carson City. We had the July 2004 waterfall fire, and that was an interesting day because we saw the smoke very early in the day up on the top of the mountain, and we listened to the radio before 8 o'clock, and everybody knew there was a fire. The management at the college at that particular day didn't want to close the college down. And we had wind the prior day, and we were expecting wind that day. And when you have wind and a fire on the top of the mountain, that can lead to trouble. So it was about 2 o'clock where we closed the college, and about the same time we got a direction from the fire department that they wanted us to evacuate. So we had to go through every room in the college's buildings to make sure that we were properly evacuated. And it took quite a bit of time, and the fire, in the meantime, came down into the valley. And the thing that really saved us was a change in the wind direction right at the end of that first day. The other great thing that happened was the people that ran our preschool decided that it was too risky during the morning before the college decided to close, and they called their parents and said that they were closing. And it took a little time for all the parents to get there and to pick up their children, but it was just wonderful that the person that ran the preschool at that time had the presence of mind to move ahead with that. And of course, a wildfire can evacuate you permanently. Your house can burn down very easily in something like that, depending on the location. And a lot of the things that I've mentioned previously, like the Safe and Well website, are appropriate for items like this. Utility outage and service problems. In our emergency plan, there are contact phone numbers. Also, we have the names and numbers for knowledgeable church members. And we want you to try to go through the church office before you bring into a contractor unless it's an emergency situation. And Pam at the office can help you with these phone numbers if you don't have the emergency plan handy. The next item to talk about is one that has drawn our attention fairly recently, and that is disease and pandemic. And I have to say that during the H1N1 virus, I used Carson City Health and Human Services. I've got their phone number down there that you can read. They also have a wonderful website. These are marvelous people that really understand what's going on. I think if you listen to the news too much, you can get confused because different people are going different ways. Carson City Health and Human Services is a great group, bottom line. Crime in progress, theft, damage, vandalism at the church. Observe, don't approach, leave the scene, call 911, meet with police after they have the situation under control, and memorize the key observations. What type of auto, what's the description of the people? What else do you remember from what happened? That's the bottom line. Bomb threats and suspicious packages. At the college, we had a lot of bomb threats because a lot of times students weren't prepared for exams and wanted not to have to take that exam on that given day. And what we would do is keep the party on the line and call 911 on a different phone, obviously, to trace the call and try to keep the person talking as long as possible so dispatch could figure out what the number was that called. On suspicious packages, it's pretty well best to leave them alone. Don't touch or move. If nobody knows why it's there or how it got there, you probably want to call 911 and have someone inspect it before you try to move it. Hazardous spill or exposure. Again, I was a hazardous material contractor when I worked in California, so I'm pretty knowledgeable of subjects like this. Attempt to isolate and control the spill. Keep those not contaminated away from the spill. If people are exposed, try to isolate them. Identify the hazardous material and download the material safety data sheet. And if this can't be done, and it's a serious situation, you want to immediately call 911 and request a hazardous material response. And again, you want to send someone out to guide the fire truck to the right direction. We really don't have that many chemicals, I hope, at the college, at the church. I've got a list of some of them, and I've put together a brief list of MSDSs. Most of them are going to be oils and fuels and things like that, but if you know of chemicals that are dangerous that are in the church, please let me know. And what we'll do is we'll get an MSDS and we can train the people that are using these chemicals as to what to do if they do get a spill. Next is terrorism and civil unrest, and we've seen a little bit of that fairly recently. The best thing is to close and lock the church, turn off the lights, really, evacuate, call 911 if the situation's out of control. Normally you would not want to attempt to engage participants, and listen to Code Red for alerts and news. Violence in church facilities, and this is, where it's not an active shooter situation. If it's serious or potentially serious, you want to immediately call 911. If you or a group know the people involved and feel that they may listen, you can try to intervene. It's best to do it as a group. If weapons are present, you want to stay clear and dial 911. And now we're going to start a little bit on active shooter. We had the IHOP incident in Carson City. Single shooter, no motive, shooter killed at the scene. We were fortunate with CERT because we've been trained in triage, and we got to watch a detailed film of the challenges that the Carson City Fire Department encountered doing triage after that emergency, and the challenges that they had to address. And, it's not something that you really like to watch, but it was very informative and very helpful for us. A Fallon church. Two men apparently had an ongoing argument. The aggressor left the church and returned with a gun. The aggressor shot and killed the other man, and also shot and injured an uninvolved person. That was a very sad situation. I think we've got to look and make sure things like that don't happen. If you know someone with a ongoing feud with another individual that are apt to meet in the church, it'd be good to let Pam or Maggie know. The last item I've got there is a Carson City courthouse exercise. What I did a few years ago, because I ran the active shooter exercises at the college, I went and volunteered for one that the Carson City Sheriff's Department was putting on at the Carson City Courthouse. And the purpose of the training was to train the judges and the lawyers and the staff. And during the break, we all came out of the courtroom, and we were in the hallway on the second floor. All of a sudden, the active shooters appeared, and when they appeared, I was talking with another person, and we saw the shooter at the same time, and they were very close to us. We were really surprised. So we hid behind a column initially, and then we spotted a way to get off of the second floor, a stairwell. But there was a push door, a push bar on the door. So when the shooters weren't looking, we ran to that, and unfortunately the door didn't open because the door had a sign on it that said 15-second delay. So we ran back to the column that we were hiding behind and waited a few seconds, and then we ran to the push bar again, and the door opened. But this time one of the active shooters saw us. So as we headed down the stairs to leave the building, get to the first floor and then out, one of the active shooters actually followed us down the stairs and was shooting at us. And I was surprised that he was going to run that far to try to get us. So I learned a lot from that exercise. I learned, number one, you need to know the building that you're in. So I'm telling everybody, get more familiar with the doors that are locked and the doors that aren't locked around the church on a normal basis. So if there is an active shooter event when you are in the church, you'll know exactly what to do. And the second thing that I learned was to run and keep running. Okay, and you really need to run farther than you probably think you need to run. The other thing to remember about active shooter incidents is the fact that they're all different, that the weapon may not be a gun, it could be a knife or an explosive. And FEMA recommends, number one, to flee and run, and always go further than what you feel is necessary. I wonder who added that on there. A second response, if you're unable to flee and run, is to hide and lock down. Lock doors, close blinds, turn off lights, silence cell phones and other electronics. Stay away from windows, barricade the door if needed. And the third and last, and hopefully you never have to do this, is fight back. This is your last resort. Use as many people as possible. use clubs, tools, and weapons, and spraying a fire extinguisher may impair the shooter. This is what was done on 9/11 when that airplane was headed for Washington. We don't know exactly what the people we never know, but they somehow overcame the force that had the weapons on the plane, and the plane eventually crashed. The next thing we're going to go do is take a look at active shooter film, but before we do that, I want to mention that my daughters were in a school district adjacent to Columbine, and that was very upsetting to me. We were all living in Denver at that time, and what was upsetting was the fact that the parents of the people that made the assault on the Columbine school did not know that their children had, well, they probably knew that they had guns, but they didn't know that they had excessive ammunition. And I'm sure they didn't know that they had bombs. It was just so scary for me. So what I did, I wanted to train, my children were young at that time, and I wanted to train them to remember what happened there. So what I did, and I hope you can see this, I bought a 3x3 painting of a Columbine plant so that I would never forget what occurred on that day, because it really did upset me. I was very disappointed with what happened, and since then we've seen an ongoing within the United States a lot more active shooter situations. So what we want to do now is show you the film. It's Run, Hide, Fight, Surviving Active Shooter. It's a very popular film. Enjoy it, and I'll be back with you after it's over. Thank you.
It may feel like just another day at the office, but occasionally, life feels more like an action movie than reality. The authorities are working hard to protect you and to protect our public spaces. But sometimes bad people do bad things. Their motivations are different. The warning signs may vary, but the devastating effects are the same. And unfortunately, you need to be prepared for the worst. If you were ever to find yourself in the middle of an active shooter event, your survival may depend on whether or not you have a plan. The plan doesn't have to be complicated. There are 3 things you could do that make a difference. Run, hide, fight. First and foremost, if you can get out, do. Always try and escape or evacuate, even when others insist on staying. Encourage others to leave with you, but don't let them slow you down with indecision. Remember what's important, you, not your stuff. Leave your belongings behind and try to find a way to get out safely. Trying to get yourself out of harm's way needs to be your #1 priority. Once you are out of the line of fire, try to prevent others from walking into the danger zone and call 911. can't get out safely, you need to find a place to hide. Act quickly and quietly. Try to secure your hiding place the best you can. Turn out lights, and if possible, remember to lock doors. Silence your ringer and vibration mode on your cell phone. And if you can't find a safe room or closet, try to conceal yourself behind large objects that may protect you. Do your best to remain quiet and calm. As a last resort, if your life is at risk, whether you are alone or working together as a group, fight. Act with aggression. Improvise weapons. Disarm him. And commit to taking the shooter down, no matter what. Try to be aware of your environment. Always have an exit plan. Know that in an incident like this, victims are generally chosen randomly. The event is unpredictable and may evolve quickly. The first responders on the scene are not there to evacuate or tend to the injured. They are well trained and are there to stop the shooter. Your actions can make a difference for your safety and survival. Be aware and be prepared. And if you find yourself facing an active shooter, there are 3 key things you need to remember to survive. Run, hide, fight.
Let's summarize what we just saw. Run. If there's an escape route, try to evacuate. Evacuate even if others agree or not. Leave belongings behind. Help others escape if possible. Prevent others from entering the area. And call 911 when you're safe. Hide. If evacuation is not possible, find a place to hide. Turn off lights. Lock and barricade the door. Silence cell phones. Hide behind larger objects. Remain quiet. And then the last one is fight. This is your last resort, and only if your life is in danger. Attempt to incapacitate the shooter. Act with physical aggression. A group is best. Improvise weapons. Commit to your actions. As we said before, the gun might not be the only weapon. There may be more than one shooter. When police arrive, get your hands up where they can be seen and follow the instructions of the police. And again, if you have questions and comments, there's my contact information. Because the next thing I want to show you is a fire extinguisher training video. I really like this one. I hope you do, and I'm going to be back after it's over. Hope you enjoy it.
Fire is a deadly destructive force. Fire-related property loss last year alone was estimated at $11 billion. The best way for the average person to be safe from fire is to prevent it from happening in the first place. However, in certain situations, a fire extinguisher can help you limit the damage a fire might cause by putting it out before it has a chance to grow out of control. Fire extinguishers are your first defense against fire. Before we talk in detail about fire extinguishers, let's talk about fire itself. You can think of fire as a three-part chemical reaction, or a triangle. The base of the triangle is fuel. Fires need some material to burn. One side of the triangle is heat. All fire is hot. The other side of the triangle is oxygen. Without oxygen, fire goes out. Fire extinguishers put fires out by taking one of the three parts out of the mix and interrupting the chemical reaction. Fire is very fast. In only 30 seconds, a small fire can grow completely out of control and engulf a room. Room temperature in a fire can be 100 degrees at the floor and up to 600 degrees at eye level. The best way to survive a fire is to have working smoke alarms and a quick, safe escape route. Knowing when and how to use a fire extinguisher is a matter of life and death. If you choose the wrong extinguisher or use it in the wrong circumstances, you could make a small fire worse, and you could be injured or even killed. No two fires are just alike. Fires burn, spread, and are extinguished depending on what is burning. Fires are separated into classes depending on what is burning, and fire extinguishers are designed to put out only a certain class or classes of fire. The classes of fire are A, B, C, D, and K. Class A fires are those in materials like wood, paper, trash, cloth, and other ordinary combustibles. These fires can be extinguished by either air-pressured water or dry chemical extinguishers. Class A extinguishers are labeled with the letter A inside a triangle and/or a picture of burning trash. Class B fires are fires of flammable liquids like oil, grease, gasoline, kerosene, and acetone. Using water on a Class B fire can spread the fire to a larger area, causing more damage or even injuries. Class B fires can be extinguished by either dry chemical extinguishers or carbon dioxide extinguishers. Class B extinguishers are labeled with the letter B inside a square and/or a picture of a burning gas can. Class C is the category for electrical fires, such as those in appliances or at electrical outlets. These fires can be extinguished by either dry chemical extinguishers or carbon dioxide extinguishers. Class C extinguishers are labeled with the letter C inside a circle and/or a picture of a burning electrical plug. Most homes are best protected by multi-purpose fire extinguishers. These extinguishers are called dry chemical extinguishers. Dry chemical extinguishers work by separating the fuel element of the fire from its oxygen supply. The agent inside the extinguisher coats the fuel with a thin layer of dust. It not only separates the fuel from the oxygen in the air, but it also interrupts the chemical reaction of fire. Multi-purpose dry chemical extinguishers are also called ABC extinguishers because they put out Class A, B, and C fires. These extinguishers are safe for use on ordinary combustible fires, like furniture or papers, on fires of flammable liquids like grease or nail polish remover, and on fires in electrical equipment. They are labeled with the A, B, and C emblems and/or the pictures associated with each type. In addition to the letter and picture symbols, fire extinguisher labels have numbers on them that tell the size of the fire the extinguisher can handle. The number with the letter A tells how much water or other extinguishing agent it holds. The number with the letter B tells approximately how many square feet of a flammable liquid fire the extinguisher will put out. The larger these two numbers are, the larger the fires they can be expected to put out. There is no number associated with the C on a label. The fourth class of fire is Class D. These fires are those in combustible metals, such as magnesium, titanium, potassium, sodium, and others. Class D extinguishers are necessary in laboratories and industrial areas where these metals are found. The metals burn at extremely high temperatures and react violently with water, air, and certain chemicals. Class D extinguishers are labeled with the letter D inside a star. Class K fires are fires in restaurant kitchens. In recent years, the restaurant industry has begun to use vegetable oils in their deep-fat fryers. Class K extinguishers were developed to deal with these hotter oil fires in restaurant settings. It's important to understand the classes of fires for two reasons. First, to make certain you purchase the type of extinguisher you're most likely to need. And second, to make certain before you try to put out a fire that you have the right fire extinguisher at hand. If you do not know for sure what is burning, do not even try to extinguish a fire. Exit immediately and call the fire department from a neighboring home or business. Fire extinguishers are great tools for limiting the damage a fire can do if they are used under the right conditions. If you think you can fight a fire safely, go ahead and give the extinguisher a try. Here's what has to happen. First, call the fire department at 911 or tell someone else to do it. If you are at work, pull a fire alarm too. Only try to fight a fire that is small and contained. If the fire is spreading, leave the area immediately. Also try to use an extinguisher that is easy to reach and in working order. That is, it is fully charged. Also make sure the extinguisher is large enough to put out the fire within 8 to 10 seconds. That's how long you'll have, because most extinguishers completely discharge their extinguishing agent in under 10 seconds. Most portable fire extinguishers are fairly straightforward to operate. But if you don't know how to use the extinguisher you have, the time of the fire is not the time to learn. Only attempt to use an extinguisher you are familiar with. Don't start fighting the fire until everyone else has left the area or is leaving. Before you try to fight a fire, position yourself between the fire and an easy-to-reach exit. The exit should be at your back as you face the fire. Don't hesitate to quit if conditions change. If smoke fills the room, drop the extinguisher. Get on your hands and knees. Cover your nose and mouth with your shirt and crawl to the exit. The indispensable key to fighting fires safely is knowing how to use the extinguisher. If you're not very comfortable with operating instructions, don't even try to use the extinguisher. Different extinguishers have slightly different operations, but they are similar. Here are a few simple steps that apply to most extinguishers. Just remember, PASS. PASS is a memory device for the 4 basic steps of fire extinguisher use. P, pull the pin. A pin or latch locks the operating lever. Pull the pin or latch to free the lever. Stand 6 to 8 feet away from the fire. A, aim the extinguisher's nozzle or hose low at the base of the fire. S, squeeze the lever that operates the extinguisher. The extinguishing agent will immediately begin to discharge. S, sweep from side to side. The fire seems to be going out. Move carefully toward it as you continue to sweep side to side. Even after the fire appears to be out, keep an eye on the site until the fire department arrives. Firefighters should examine the site of any fire to be certain that it is completely out. At home, you should have a fire extinguisher in the kitchen, the basement, the garage, and the workshop. Also, it's a good idea to have one near the bedrooms and the living room, especially if any smokers live in the home, or if you use wood stoves or space heaters for heat. In your home, install fire extinguishers 3 to 5 feet off the ground, where adults can easily see and reach them. Teach kids that extinguishers are not toys and are not to be touched. If you use a bracket to hang your extinguisher, make sure the bracket is easy to open. A stable shelf or alcove is a good location. Never hide your extinguishers in a closet or cupboard. Store all extinguishers away from heat sources. Install extinguishers near the exits and between any likely source of fire and the exit. If you work in an office or other low fire risk setting, fire extinguishers are installed much as they are at home. They should be placed in kitchens, near machinery, and in hallways. In most communities, workplace fire extinguishers are subject to regulation. Your local fire department will be happy to assist you in selecting and installing fire extinguishers in your workplace. Fire extinguishers are generally easy to maintain. Make sure any moving parts are dust and corrosion free. Check extinguishers monthly to see that they are charged and full. Most ABC extinguishers are disposable and must be discarded after use. If their gauges show empty, they must be replaced. Rechargeable units must be recharged if their gauges indicate low charge. Most of us hope that if we found a fire burning, we could save the day by putting it out. But putting out a fire is not as simple as it seems. Fire is a major killer. It is hotter, faster, and more uncontrollable than many people think. At the same time, a knowledgeable adult with a working fire extinguisher can put out some small, containable fires. In the case of a fire, evacuate the building, call the fire department, or have someone else call from a neighboring house or business, and then assess whether a small blaze can be put out with a fire extinguisher. Preparation and knowledge can make fire extinguishers your first defense against fire.
Let's review what you just saw. You know, they're using a multi-purpose ABC dry fire extinguisher on small fires. Call 911 first. Pull the fire alarm, and that's in the breezeway for the church, and then evacuate the building. Use the pass system. Pull, aim at the base of the flame, squeeze and sweep. Always keep clear exit behind you, and always have a partner to guide you when possible. Those are the key elements of using a fire extinguisher. And again, I think I'll be able to get you some training where you'll have to be able to work on a live fire, which will really make it easier for you when you really have to do it for real. Next thing we have is a stroke training medical emergency video, and I like this one as well. It's only 5 minutes long, and I'll see you directly after this because this will be the last one that we show in this film. So enjoy it, and I'll see you when it's done. Thank you.
Let's see what's on that other thing there. Oh, help, buddy. Oh, oh, that hurts. What's wrong with me? Please, somebody call. Help me, please.
Hey, Carol.
What?
I heard you yell out for some help.
Yeah. Oh.
So, listen, can you tell me what's going on?
I don't feel good.
You don't feel good?
No, my head hurts, my neck. I just, don't feel good.
I see your remote down here. Did you drop it?
Yeah, I was trying to change the channel.
Can you do something for me?
Right.
Can you smile at me a second? A big smile. Okay, good. Listen, I'm going to hold your arms up here a moment. I don't want you to let them drop. Just hold them both even. Okay, good. You can rest your arms again. Can you say, I love my husband more than anybody?
I love...
Okay, good. That's good. That's good. What time do you think this started? Was it... Was it recently? Was it a long time ago? Just nod your head up or down if it is recently.
Yeah.
Okay. Carol, I don't want to alarm you, but I think you're showing enough symptoms that we should suspect something serious and we should call for help and get an ambulance on the way. The hospital can certainly help you, but you're having enough signs and symptoms that I'm concerned it could be a stroke. Not that I'm for sure, but I know that at the hospital they can take better care of you there than here in your home. Listen, I think we're going to give the ambulance a call. And then if it's nothing, you've bought yourself some peace of mind, okay? Okay. And I'm not going to leave you either. I'm going to stay right here, so don't worry about that.
Okay.
Now let's take a closer look at what a stroke is, how the signs and symptoms help indicate to us that it's an emergency, and then what to do in case we recognize those signs and symptoms. So a stroke has been said to be like a heart attack, but in the brain. And the reason that analogy works is because we know more about what causes strokes. And most of the time, and in many cases, the reason they're having a stroke is very similar to the reasons we have a heart attack. Something has dislodged and blocked a vessel in the brain and is now starving that brain tissue of oxygenated blood, which is now beginning to show effects neurologically in the patient's body. Now, it can also be caused from a breakage or a bursting of the blood vessel. A hemorrhagic stroke is normally caused from an aneurysm and is treated differently than we treat strokes from a blockage of a blood clot or a fatty clot. Let's talk about FAST. The acronym FAST is a way for us to be able to check systematically if a patient is showing enough signs and symptoms that we should be concerned that they might be suffering from a stroke, and then activate emergency medical services. So let's break those out for a moment. F stands for facial droop. One of the ways to see this when it's maybe not real drastic is to have the patient smile at you. When they smile, does one corner of the mouth hang lower than the other? Then we move to A, which stands for arm. Arm is when we raise both patients' arms out in front of them, and the same side that they have facial droop, the arm lists and kind of floats away from the other arm. They're not able to hold it up like they can the first arm, the arm that's not affected. Then we talk about S. S stands for slurred speech. To get them to say something to you, because they're probably very panicked at this point, I like to give them a humorous sentence to say back to me, or maybe something about themselves or their date of birth. If they seem to be slurring their speech, then that falls into that category of S for the stroke symptoms. And then lastly, T. T stands for time. What time did the symptoms begin? The reason that this is important and why we'd want to write this down and make sure we tell the responding emergency medical services is because time is of the essence if we're going to try to recirculate oxygenated blood back to that brain tissue and help this patient recover with as little long-lasting damage as possible. So if the patient starts to show those signs and symptoms under the FAST acronym, we know that it's important for us to reassure the patient that we're going to take good care of them, we're not going to desert them, but we're going to activate 911 or the emergency medical services so that we can expedite the treatment of this patient and help them regain as much quality of life as possible.
I hope you enjoyed that training. Again, a stroke is a disruption of the normal blood flow to the brain. It can cause warning signs, and I love the way they show the warning signs. The facial weakness, different right to left. Arm weakness, the same thing, different right to left. Speech problems, and we use the FAST, facial, arm, speech, and T is time. If you see any of those three, you want to call 911. Then what you want to do is you want to, if you feel that it could be a stroke after you call 911, stay with the patient, keep them comfortable, reassure them, and don't give them food or water because swallowing can be difficult for them and cause problems. So this really concludes what I had to say. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't hesitate to email me or call me if you're interested in becoming a volunteer. If you want additional training, please contact me or contact Pam, because we're going to have that coming up pretty soon. If you have an idea on how to improve our emergency response and our emergency plan, I'm interested in that as well. I need to thank everybody that's helped me so far in this endeavor, and there are many people out there that have given me a lot of suggestions, so thank you. I particularly need to thank Jess for setting me up with this video, and also for Pam, because Pam does everything to support me as best we can. God bless you all, and have a wonderful day, and thank you for listening.